welcome to this corner, the podcast, A Buck 41, where we feature boxing's biggest names, boxing's biggest stories, boxing's biggest fights, greatest memories and moments with the sweet science, and we'll have one today. A lot to cover. We are joined by, as always, boxing writer and author, CompuBox Counter, and yes, indeed, he is a historian. He is Lee Groves. How you doing, Lee?
Doing well, Smitty. How about yourself?
Pretty good. And this is one of the shows we always enjoy, where it was announced the 2025 class of inductees for the International Boxing Hall of Fame in Canastota, coming up, June 5th through the 8th, I think this year it'll be. Next year, I should say. I'm getting ahead of myself. And so we'll talk about all of those that are being inducted. In fact, one of them will join us shortly, and he is a guy that has worn a lot of pugilistic hats during his career. He is known as the commish, Randy Gordon. He'll join us. And then after that, we'll go through the other names, talk about them a little bit. And then memories and moments is one that I know is pretty special to you, because you've spoken about this fight to me many times, even way back when we first met. Tease that, if you will, for what'll be our last segment.
So we're taping on December 3rd, and on that date in 1982, one of the greatest 122-pound title fights took place. It involved two Hall of Famers, Wilfredo Gomez and Lupe Pintor, and it was a show stealer, a genuine show stealer, because it was actually the co-feature to the HBO main event between Thomas Hearns and Wilfred Benitez. But that fight between Gomez and Pintor outshined by miles the main event. So we're going to talk about that a little later.
Very cool. And you know what? I'm going to do an unscheduled break right now to talk about your favorite dentist, baby, Dr. Nam Phan. Yes. And you know, when I was talking to somebody at my speaking gig at Hilton about this the other day, who has some issues with their mouth, much like I have had, and millions of others, where you're trying to decide at a certain point what to do, if you have caps or crowns or bridges. I have the damn Panama Canal in my mouth. I've had so much work over the years, and some great work has been done, but it was time to make some serious decisions about, going the route of implants as a way of preventive and also future, with the help for the quality of life. It really does get that serious with you think about your smile, but your ability to speak. Obviously, if you eat, I don't eat much, but I eat, your ability to eat and chew, and your whole foundation of this is controlled by the mouth. And Dr. Nam Phan, he has tremendous expertise in full mouth cosmetic veneers, crowns, but dental implants is what we like to talk about. Of course, that is set up typically with extractions and sedations. He's an expert on that as well. He has locations here in Las Vegas and in New York and in New Jersey. I want to give you the best number to call, though. And if you call this number, just ask for Dr. Phan, and they'll get him in touch with you, or you in touch with him. And he will call you back. In Vegas, 702-637-9168, 702-637-9168. Dr. Nam Phan, again, he's a dental implant expert. And one of the things that I like about him is he is cost conscious. He realized how expensive, and that's why a lot of people struggle, because they simply don't have the money to get these type of procedures done. And he will set up some flexible financial options for you. And at some point, we are going to get him on the show for something I think is going to be interesting. He does customized mouth guards for boxers and other I call them other combat sports, because I don't put boxing in that category. And we spoke, I think, a week or so ago about how important a proper fitting mouth guard can be for a fighter, for your safety within your mouth, and of course also even concussions, and we'll get into that. All of that with Dr. Nam
Phan.
There you go. Very good. And we'll come back with Commissioner Randy Gordon after this. on In This Corner, the podcast, a buck 41. Boxing's biggest names, boxing's biggest stories, biggest fights, greatest memories and moments. We'll get to those memories and moments a little bit later on. But now we are joined by one of those esteemed folks that are going to be inducted in June into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in somewhere that I know quite well, Canastota, New York. And this gentleman has I think he's worn more pugilistic caps than anybody in the business. I mean, obviously, we know him as the commish, New York State Athletic Commission. Of course, he was a writer for Ring Magazine and others, radio, television. He's done blow by blow. He's done color. He's done roving. He's ring announced. He has done it all, and he kept his clothes on the entire time that he's done all of that. He is the commish, Randy Gordon. Don't ask me why I threw that part in about clothing, but first thing is, congratulations. I am a big fan of your work, and I'm a big one that was rooting and praying for you to have this moment. It's finally arrived, and as at this point, I actually, because he prepared so much, I'll congratulate Randy, and I'll flip it to Lee, and Randy will keep his clothes on during this broadcast. Go ahead.
Maybe.
First of all, congratulations on your election to the Boxing Hall of Fame. It's well deserved. A lot of people thought that it was a few years, this could have happened a few years ago. How long have you been thinking about the day that you would get the call from the hall?
From the day I cut the ribbon in 1989.
Really?
No, it really didn't cross my mind. And guys, thank you so much for having me on. And by the way, Smitty, when you were mentioning all these jobs that I had, I said, oh my God, I could never keep a job. So no, it really didn't cross my mind until around 1995. For the first time, I thought about it. It was my last year as commissioner, and I was up at another induction weekend. And I had heard right there at the induction that, Randy, we hear you're not going to have your job too much longer. And it turned out that it was that summer that I did leave. And it was then that I started thinking, wow, I've had all these jobs. I wonder if that day will ever come. And you mentioned, Lee, you said perhaps it's come too late, whatever. You know what? If it was posthumous, then I couldn't have enjoyed it as much. But it's not. And I'm the way I'm feeling.
But knowing you, if it was posthumous, you would have showed up any damn way. You would have been there. But go ahead.
You guys know it. I would have been there. But this has always meant a lot to me. And what's so funny about this, I wrote a book a few years ago called Glove Affair. And then I decided there were so many great boxing stories in there that I'm going to continue it, and I'm going to write another book, and we're going to call it Glove Story. And I'm just about done with the book, and I said, what am I going to put in for the final chapter? What am I going to end this one with? I couldn't think of anything until the call came from Ed Brophy telling me that I had been voted in. When I hung up with Ed, I said, I got my final chapter. And it comes from a few years ago. We were up at the Hall of Fame during one of those induction weekends, and I'm driving home from Canastota to Long Island, about a 300-mile drive. And my wife turned to me and asked, do you think you'll ever get the call? And I just kind of looked at her and I said, I don't know. I said, but you know what? If it's posthumous, would you do me a favor? Would you take it for me? And she said, and if I'm gone, we'll have one of the kids do it. And I said, oh, that's great. That makes me feel good. And then I said, no, honey, I really don't know. And she said, does it bother you at all that some other names get in and you've mentioned other names that should be in? I said, look, it is what it is. They got the ballots, and then they got the balloters. If it happens, it happens. And I didn't dwell on it. But when I hung up with Ed Brophy the other day, that moment came back with my wife, and that's the final chapter in my new book that I'm probably about a month away from finishing. The final chapter is going to be called A Call from the Hall.
There you go.
And what makes this, and I just hung up a little while ago with Hall of Fame President Don Ackerman, who I told him about this final chapter, and he had a major role in this final chapter because it was back in 1983. I'm editor-in-chief of Ring Magazine, and Bert Sugar had just left as being the publisher, and they elevated me to editor-in-chief. And for years, Bert and I entertained many people coming up, pitching a Hall of Fame to us. Not one of them ever had a solid idea of what a Hall of Fame would be. Where's it going to be? Somewhere in the United States. Some would say New York. I said, where in New York? New York City? It could be. None of them had one tiny idea of where it would be, when it would be, where you're going to get funding for this. Not one answer. And many times Bert would say, get out of this office, get out now, quick. And I mean, he did everything, but actually one guy he almost threw out the window from the 5th floor. So when this time came in the summer of 1983, I was being told that you've got 2 guys coming up from upstate New York, want to talk to you about a Hall of Fame. Wonderful. I'm already bored. I had a big day. I had to write my editorial. I had to edit 2 or 3 stories. I had an interview at NBC where they were talking to me about replacing Dr. Freddie Pacheco. So it was a very important meeting for me. And then I had to come back to the office and sit around because 2 guys from upstate New York, this Don Ackerman fella and Ed Brophy, wanted to pitch to me a Hall of Fame. Oh my God. Well, all the other ones, all they really wanted was for me to write a big story on them and or to give them a check for $100,000 from Ring Magazine. Yeah, that's going to happen too. And I said, you want me to write a story? What would you like me to put in this story that you have no idea where it's going to be, when it's going to be, how it's going to be done, and you would like a check from me? When you have a better idea of what a Hall of Fame is, come back to me. And then, of course, in walk these 2 guys. I'm bored to tears already. And I said, where are you guys from? And they said, Canastota, New York. And they expected me to say, Cana where? And I said, Canastota. That's where Carmen Basilio's from. That's where Billy Backus is from. And they looked at me. Oh my God, you know that? I'm editor-in-chief of Ring Magazine. I'm supposed to kind of know some of that. And it's New York, and I'm a New Yorker and everything. So I said, guys, come in, sit down. And Ed Brophy held a big, long tube. And I said, what's in that tube? They said, we brought something to show you. And they opened it up, and they rolled out blueprints across my desk. I didn't know how to read blueprints then. And all these years later, I still don't. But they're showing me the incredible blueprints. And I remember seeing this is where the bandstand is going to be there. And this is where the Hall of Fame building is going to be. And this is where they had everything mapped out. And when they walked out of the office, I said, guys, you forgot one thing. What's that? You didn't ask me how much money I'm going to be able to give you from Ring Magazine. And you didn't ask for me to write a story on you. And they said, no, we didn't come up here looking for a check from you. We didn't come up looking for a story. All we want is to know that we have Ring Magazine's blessing. Well, it was soon after that I left Ring Magazine, and I went off and I became commissioner in New York. And it was about a year after I started as commissioner. I get a call from the same Ed Brophy and Don Ackerman, and they said, "We're the guys who came up to see you at Ring Magazine. We've got the ground broken. Would you please come up as commissioner and cut the ribbon?" I said, "Oh my God, I would love to." And it was around, I guess, March or April on a muddy field in Canastota that I went up and I joined Floyd Patterson and Carmen Basilio and Billy Backus and a bunch of other politicians who were there strictly for the photo op, some local senators and whatnot. And we cut the ribbon, and there's actually a picture that Don Ackerman has, which is going to be part of my display um, for when I get inducted. And then the following year, 1990, I'm still commissioner. The very first year that they had their inductions, they asked me to come up and basically open the Hall of Fame. And I stood up there and I look out to this crowd and I look to my right, look to my left. There's Muhammad Ali, there's Joe Frazier, there's Jake LaMotta, there's Willie Pep, and on and on. It was just a fight fan's absolute. This to me was one of the highlights of my life. And I basically said, this has been a dream from the town of Canastota, and especially these two guys over here. And in the picture that I have, they're standing on both sides of me. I said, this has been a dream. And the Hall of Fame, the International Hall of Fame, is now underway. Let's launch the very first year of inductions as we take boxing into the future with the International Boxing Hall of Fame's first class of inductions. And I mean, I was just overwhelmed. I was like dizzy from just being overwhelmed. And, here it is. And I went to just about every one of them. Here it is, the class of 2025. No longer do I think about it. It has happened. And it truly is a dream come true. And I know I'm going to be spending from now until that time in June, my face is going to hurt from smiling.
Yeah. Well, chatting with Randy Gordon, he will be part of the International Boxing Hall of Fame's class of 2025. I'll be there and look forward to all the different things that we'll do with Randy and the others, and we'll get to the others later on in the program as Lee continues.
So take us back to the day where you actually received the call. Where were you? What were you doing? How'd you react?
I was actually, ironically, sitting working on my book, on my glove story, just working on that final chapter, but leaving an area blank because I want to finish this book. And Lee is a guy who wrote Ali by the numbers and did so much work. And sometimes it's like eating potato chips. You can't stop.
Right.
Eat one, eat another. I'll just do one more. And it doesn't end. So I was sitting there. I had just come back from the gym. I had a nice workout, took a nice shower, and I just was sitting around relaxing, writing away, and the phone rings. And I didn't even look. Sometimes, you'll look at your phone. Oh, Lee Groves is calling and Smitty's calling, whatever. Mm-hmm. Well, I hear it ring and I pick it up. Randy G. Randy, this is Ed Brophy. Well, you hear those words. This is Ed Brophy. Hi, Ed. I said, how's your day going? This is a beautiful day. And this is a beautiful day. I don't know about in Canastota if it's beautiful. It's gorgeous here. And he said, Randy, it's gorgeous here too. And it's even better for me because I'm about to say to you, congratulations. You have been voted to be a member of the class of 2025. And oh my God. And, right away, I felt myself losing it. And I think everybody who gets the call, if they tell you they didn't get a little bit teary-eyed and weepy, they're lying. because I will tell you, I cried like a little girl. And I did my best to hold it in. And one day, I know that you guys are going to be in the same position. Smitty, I think your day is around the corner.
Yes.
And both of you are going to cry like little bitches too.
Well,
Oh, can I
the
say that?
sacrifice,
This is not serious radio.
the sacrifices that one makes in this sport, you know, all three of us could have done all kinds of things. Myself, I could have just stayed in Miami, hooked up with the Dolphins or something, and done television
Yeah.
with. But this is a different kind of a sport. It's a different kind of a love affair. It's I've done and so many speeches on it. The good, the bad, and the ugly, and the sacrifices, even that like a guy like you has had to make, and Lee has had to make, and I've had to make to get to this position. And I think that sets up Lee for your next question because again, as I've mentioned, he's got a hat on now. I don't know, but Randy has again. You talk about versatility when it comes to this category. The observers and people like that, when it comes to there are, and I say this sincerely, if you put a spreadsheet, we used to do legal pads back in the day for all you kids out there who have no idea what a freaking legal pad is. If you put down on one side of the paper Randy Gordon and then anybody else who was up against him, there'd be no comparison because Randy's goes off the first page. And that's where I know you're going, Lee, next.
Yeah, I mean, you've been a writer, you've been an editor in chief, you've been a broadcaster, both at ringside, in the radio studio. You've been a commissioner. You even boxed professionally, albeit briefly. Which of these
Yeah.
roles gave you the most satisfaction and fulfillment?
And he could have been a contender, much like Smitty. He could have been a contender, but we felt sorry for those tall dudes that we gave pity. Smitty and Randy gave pity to those folks. But go ahead. I had to add that.
Oh my God. Which, well, obviously, out of high school, and I started to box, and I had a very nice amateur career of 37-2. And then when my professional career started as a writer with World Boxing, International Boxing, Big Book of Boxing, um, I absolutely knew that this is what I would do for life. My family was in the lumber business. They wanted me to go into the lumber business, where today I'd be living out in the Hamptons, out on Long Island, in the mansion I built with my lumber. It's not what I wanted. My father was an airline pilot, and I had given thoughts to being a pilot. I took flight lessons, I soloed, I got it by myself. And then one day, my flight lessons, I owed about $1,000.
Mm.
And then I said, Dad, can you maybe help me out with the bill? He said, okay, let's sit down here. He said, if you want to be a pilot, I'm going to pay for your flight lessons and your flight college. If you want to be a sportscaster, I'll pay for your journalism school and broadcast communications. But if you want your broadcast communications, the flying is going to be your hobby. You pay for your hobby. Well, I tried it a little bit, and then all of a sudden my bill is again 350, 400, 450. Dad said, last time I will pay it. And this is when I was 19, 20 years old. And I said, I'm going for the broadcast communications. And he was very, very supportive. And mom and dad passed away a number of years ago, but they did get to see me become commissioner in New York. They did get to see me become editor-in-chief of Ring Magazine. And I'm actually going into the Hall of Fame as a writer, as an observer, when I could have gone in as the commissioner with everybody. You guys, everybody knows me as the commish. I know me as the commish. My grandkids call me commish.
Yeah.
But in comparison, I was commissioner for 7 years. I've been in journalism since basically, um, and in the sport of boxing as an amateur fighter since 1967.
Wow.
And then writing right away. So I've spent close to 50 years as a writer journalist, and I spent 7 as the commish, who I know myself as. So I can't even answer the question, what gave me the most to be on as many stations as I was on the fledgling entertainment and sports programming network, which in the beginning we had to say that each and every time we were on the air until they finally shortened it to ESPN.
Right.
To be there, to work with then Sal Marciano. Good night, sweet prince. 8, 9, 10. Good night, sweet prince. And a fledgling, it was a young Al Bernstein and a young Randy Gordon working side by side and with Sal Marciano. And of course, my career ended very quickly at ESPN because I did something that got me fired from ESPN. I had blown the whistle on a fight on a main event on ESPN because one guy was under medical suspension.
Mm.
And he had been knocked out 5 nights earlier, but he was still allowed to fight. And I said, he can't fight. And he was fighting under an assumed name. And I said, he got knocked out 5 nights ago. And I was told, you shut up about it. How do you know he got knocked out? I said, I was ringside for the fight.
That's proof.
I was told, shut up about it. I said, I'm not going to shut up. You guys have one of 3 choices. Either you kill the fight, there's one. 2, you get a last second replacement, or you let the fight go on. But if you let it go on, I mention it. I did. I had just gotten a big raise from ESPN. 2 weeks later, I got fired.
Mm.
And it was heartbreaking for me because I loved that job. It was the job that I went to college for, to become an announcer. And now, just like that, it's over. Little did I know that there was a guy watching that night who had just become governor in New York, Mario Cuomo. And when he went looking 6 years later for a commissioner, he said, you know, the guy I'm thinking of is Randy Gordon. I watch him on TV on the MSG network. This is the guy who got fired for telling the truth. He said, this is the kind of guy I want to be commissioner. And in my first meeting with Governor Cuomo, he asked me about that story. He said, it's amazing. You could have kept your mouth shut. Why didn't you? Hmm. I said, I couldn't live with myself calling that fight, knowing this guy was under medical suspension. And he said, that's why I want you as my commissioner. So, you do things in life sometimes for the right reason, and it hurts when you do it, but it came back 6 years later to basically shape the rest of my career. And the guys that I work with, the Burt Randolph Sugars, taught me so much. Mario Cuomo taught me so much. And I think I learned this game from so many different angles, having a headset on and microphone and being the commissioner and having to choose referees and judges and deal with sanctioning bodies. This is the sport that I chose years ago, and I feel like I just started in the game. It's as exciting to me now as it's ever been.
That's great to hear. That's great to hear. And you've attended many induction weekends, but you did it on the other side. You did it as a professional. Now you're going to be on the other side of it. You're going to be mingling with your new classmates. You're going to be signing the autographs from fans. You're going to be giving interviews to the media. You're going to get the ring and the certificate and the plaque on the wall. And you're probably going to be doing a ringside lecture with Smitty. So, how much are you looking forward to this entire process that you've seen for so many years on the other side, but now you're going to be experiencing experiencing it from a completely different perspective.
I wish it was June 4th and tomorrow I'm on my way to Canastota. I mean, I know that I'm going to be enjoying every moment between now and then. And when then comes, I am just going to love. I've always been one to whenever something nice happens to you, enjoy the moment, enjoy it. Take it and squeeze every drop of excitement that you can out of it. And I truly believe this. And I said to Don Ackerman when he was saying congratulations to me, I said, Don, you know me. You worked for me as a judge when I was commissioner. You know me, maybe better than most people. When I tell you that through all the people that you've ever inducted, there's never been one this excited. And I dare anybody. And look, I'm going into a class with the great Manny Pacquiao. I assure you, Manny is thrilled about this. Not like me, but Manny certainly, I can't wait to speak to him. I'm going to do my own interview with Manny as class of 25 inductee, class of 25 inductee. I can't wait for this weekend to come up.
You got Queen Ronnie and Cooney and all your friends and fans, and we're not there yet, but when you got the call from Ed, who was the person or persons that you wish right away you could have called to tell them, but unfortunately they're not going to be able to be with you in June?
Well, there's just so many. I mean, you know, my mom and dad, who passed away a few years ago, those are the two people that I thought of right away, which got me kind of weepy, got me very weepy, because they truly enjoyed my career. They enjoyed seeing me on TV for the first time. And my mother was, my father, as bright as he was, my mother wasn't dumb, but she didn't get anything about recording. So one night she was watching ESPN, and there I am live from Atlantic City. And she's turning the channels, and there I am live from New York City on another channel. And she had to call my phone, honey, how could Randy be on two stations? And she just didn't, Mom, they taped the one a couple days ago. Oh, okay. I mean, but they so enjoyed my career, and they got to see me as editor-in-chief of Ring Magazine. They got to meet Bert Sugar. They came down to Atlantic City with me and all over the place. Um, and so many of the things that I did. Um, Mom and Dad even came up to that first year in 1990. I wasn't getting inducted, but they knew what the Hall of Fame meant to me. And they watched as their son stood up at the podium, opening up this Hall of Fame. Let's get these games underway, if you will. So Mom and Dad are the ones that I really wish, when I hung up and I got done wiping my eyes, I said, Mom, Dad, thank you so much for all you did, for your support, and wish you could be there with me. But they are going to be with me in June.
Yep. And somebody else will be with you in June, and this will be our final question. Throw it out there, Lee. There's the commish and the Pac-Man.
Yeah, what are your impressions of Manny Pacquiao?
And just your average fighter who wins titles in so many different divisions. He has done something that just nobody has ever done. When I first heard that Manny Pacquiao was going to be eligible, I said, this is a first ballot. Everybody who has a pencil or pen and can vote, everybody. I'd like to find out, did he get every single vote? And you're holding up, I'm sure you voted, knowing you, that you voted for him.
Absolutely.
The guy was 62, 8-2, whatever. But it's not just that incredible record, it's what he did. I mean, look, I know what it's like to fight at the little weights because when I was boxing at 112, 115. But even by the time I got to 122, I lost my one pro fight at 122. And I can tell you that 5-6 pounds at that weight is a lot. And my opponent, if you ever see the pictures of my opponent, they announced him. I weighed 122, he weighed 128. He told me later he weighed 138. He was a last second replacement. 4 weight classes, but I know what that is. And I say to myself, how could Manny Pacquiao be fighting at under 112 pounds and go up 115, 122, 126, 130, 30? It's impossible. And to win at the highest levels continuously for years. He didn't do this in one fight. He fought the best. Yes, he lost. He got starched. Marquez starched him. So what? Yeah. Look what he did. This is one of the greatest Hall of Famers, one of the greatest fighters. We got at Sirius Radio, we got a letter the other day. Manny Pacquiao is going to probably be voted in. Do you think he's an all-time great? My answer, if he is not an all-time great, there is no such thing as an all-time great. And I'm going in with Manny Pacquiao. He's going to have to get rid of me because I'm going to be all over him like ants at a picnic.
Yeah, and much like, he had so many titles, you've worn so many hats. You both are full of versatility and courage, both of you, for different reasons and things I know about your life and career. Bottom line is we are thrilled that you will be there with us in June as an international boxing Hall of Famer, the commish, Randy Gordon. Thanks for joining us, Randy. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you for having me. I appreciate you. I love you guys. Thank you so much.
And we'll be back to talk about the commish, Pac-Man, and the rest of the 2025 International Boxing Hall of Fame inductees. We'll be back.
I got 2 options. Option 1, I can accept defeat. Option 2, I can get up. I can get tougher. I can get faster. I can get stronger. And then I go get mine. I made my choice. Have you made yours?
Back in this corner of the podcast, $141 with Lee Groves, and great hearing from Randy Gordon. Congratulations to him. Yes. And the others. And speaking of the other inductees into the 2025 International Boxing Hall of Fame, take it away, Lee Groves, who, by the way, will be talking about himself one day soon.
Well, I certainly hope so, but that's up to others to decide. Anyway, this year's modern class for men will consist of Manny Pacquiao, Michael Nunn, and Vinny Paz. Pacquiao was the obvious shoo-in. He became a global superstar thanks to his winning titles from 112 to 154, thanks to his 26-year career, and thanks to the dynamic performances he produced in the ring. I mean, who could forget his trilogy with Eric Morales, or his 4-fight series with Juan Manuel Marquez, his tremendous performances against Ricky Hatton and Oscar De La Hoya, Miguel Cotto, Antonio Margarito, and Shane Mosley, among others. If ever there was a no-brainer choice, this was it. And as for Nunn, he was on our August 27th, 2022 show, and we said at that time that he was deserving of this honor, and now it's happened. During his nearly 18-year career, he won belts at 160 and 168. And at his best, he was like a human greyhound. He was slick, he was quick, he was very, very hard to hit. He was masterful in defeating Frank Tate to win his first championship. And those skills helped him produce a Hall of Fame caliber career. I mean, just imagine, not too many years ago, he was sitting in a prison cell, and he had every reason to believe that people had forgotten about him. Now he's in the Hall of Fame. I mean, what a story he has.
What a career. A guy who at one point people thought was the heir apparent to the great Sugar Ray Leonard. And I was lucky enough to call a couple of his fights at the end there. But wow, what a roller coaster that right now is on top in Canastota.
As for Pazienza, I was surprised, yet not surprised by his elevation. There is a case to be made for him. He is one of the few fighters ever to win widely recognized belts at 135 and 154. Pacquiao did it if you count his Ring Magazine belt at lightweight. Mayweather did it. Roberto Duran, who Pazienza defeated twice, did it. And so did Sweet Pea Whitaker. He was also very athletic. He had excellent hand speed. He had excellent foot speed. But I think the reason he got in was because of his courage, which was just off the charts. He fought through illness, he fought through cuts, and he improbably returned to the ring after suffering a broken neck in a car accident, I believe. Believe it or not, he went on to fight 12 more years after that. And his life story was so compelling that a movie called Bleed for this was made. Many fighters are voted in because of their physical abilities, and while Paz had plenty of them, I think his intangibles put him over the top. And another thing, Paz had a devoted contingent of supporters, and Paz himself lobbied pretty hard for his induction. Well, those efforts have finally paid off, and I guarantee you, his induction speech will be a must-see event. Now, as for the other inductees, former two-time middleweight champion Rodrigo Valdez is this year's inductee in the old-timers category, while Owen Swift is the latest member to be inducted into the pioneer category. This year, there will be 3 inductees in the modern women's category instead of the usual 2 because there was a tie. And those inductees are Jessica Chavez, who was elected in her first year of eligibility, France's Anne-Sophie Mathis, and Detroit native Mary Jo Sanders rounds out that list. The Trailblazer honoree is Kathy Cat Davis, and this is significant because her elevation completes a historic trifecta. Davis was part of the successful lawsuit that allowed women to box professionally in New York State. And in this picture we're showing right now, the other 2 women who have already been inducted are Marion Trimiar, who is on the far left, and Jackie Tonawanda, who is in the center. With the addition of Davis, all 3 now have been immortalized. The non-participant class will consist of referee Kenny Bayless, who was on our show in January of this year. Pretty good omen. Harry Gibbs, considered the dean of British referees for many years, got in. And Al Gavin, who is one of his era's most respected cut men. That rounds out the non-participant class. Very strong. And finally, there are the observers. And we had one of them on earlier in the show in Randy Gordon. And joining him is TV executive Ross Greenberg, who, while serving at HBO, introduced microphones and translators in the corner. He hired Harold Letterman as the network's unofficial official. He created the 24/7 series. And on a personal note, he hired CopyBox to provide live statistics. Greenberg has won 8 Peabody Awards, he won 56 sports Emmys, and now he's being inducted into the Hall of Fame. And all in all, very strong class.
Yeah, Greenberg, a very innovative guy.
Very.
So that's some really good stuff. And I'll have more of a personal recollection about the Pac-Man, Manny Pacquiao, and yours truly, a relationship that goes way back. We'll get to that. But we're going to take one final break, and when we come back, we will memories and moments and a few other items, including they say there's a tornado warning out there. We'll see.
We'll see.
this corner of the podcast, rapidly running out of time. Hey, speaking of we talk about all the damn people we have on this program more than any other, by far, more than any other boxing podcast. We are not only the best, but we are the most comprehensive, which helps make us the best. And in keeping with that spirit, one of the things we often talk about are how fights are judged: good, bad, or even ugly, and sometimes by three blind mice. You never know. But our guest next week is one of the, I would call him the preeminent judge, maybe in all of boxing, Steve Weisfeld, who's been doing it a long time, will be with us next week on the program. And what was that I heard there? That was a tornado warning, which it's time for me to toss the lead. I think he expects some nasty weather out there for a few fighters and perhaps some upsets.
Some turbulence indeed. I'd like to briefly touch on 3 world title fights that'll take place on Saturday. First, ESPN will air a pair of title fight rematches. The first will see WBO featherweight champion Rafael Espinoza defend against Robeisy Ramirez, the man from whom he won the title last year. And the main event will see Emmanuel Navarrete risk his WBO super featherweight belt against Oscar Valdez, who Navarrete defeated on points in August 2023. Now, although Espinoza and Valdez are slight betting underdogs, I'm picking both of them to win. Espinoza by TKO and Valdez on points. And on DAZN, Liam Paro will defend his newly won IBF 140-pound belt against mandatory challenger Richardson Hitchens. Paro is coming off a superlative performance in winning the belt from Subriel Matias, while Hitchens is long and tall and quick and very technical. Once again, Hitchens is a slight betting underdog, but I think his height, his reach, his defensive skills, and the fact that he's fighting his third southpaw in his last 4 fights, I think that's going to bode well for him. I think he's going to win on points. Let's see if I'm right.
Okay. Yeah, let's see. I'll go with Paro in that one just because of the stuff that you chronicled. But Memories and Moments, always one of my favorite segments, and it'll tie naturally into Hall of Fame. And what else will tie into it is the unfortunate, way too early passing of one hell of a gladiator who perhaps someday himself will be enshrined into the International Boxing Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it was reported on Tuesday that former 3-time super bantamweight champion Israel Vasquez lost his battle with cancer. He was just 46 years old, way too early. During his 15-year professional career, he compiled a record of 44-5 with 32 knockouts. And he is best remembered for his 4-fight series with Rafael Marquez. He lost the first fight by 7th-round corner retirement, but he won the next 2 fights by 6th-round TKO and 12-round split decision. And then he lost the finale on cuts in round 3. His other victims include Oscar Larios, Jorge Eliezer Julio, and Johnny Gonzalez, all champions. And he was twice one half of Ring Magazine's Fight of the Year. And that was his victorious second and third meetings with Marquez. It's interesting to note that while Rafael Marquez has been inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame, Vasquez has yet to be voted in despite being on the ballot for the last several years. Unfortunately, if he's to be voted in, it will now have to be posthumously. And speaking of the Hall of Fame, and speaking of great fighters and great fights at 122, this week's Memories and Moments will pay tribute to perhaps the greatest super bantamweight title fight ever staged, the classic battle between Wilfredo Gomez and Lupe Pintor that took place 42 years ago this week. Gomez was defending his WBC belt for the 17th time, and all previous 16 defenses had ended in knockout. Meanwhile, Pintor, the longtime WBC bantamweight champion, was moving up in weight and was fresh off a 10-round unanimous decision over Jorge Lujan, who himself was a former bantamweight champion. Gomez Pintor was staged at the Superdome in New Orleans and was the co-feature of an HBO telecast topped by Thomas Hearns versus Wilfred Benitez. While Hearns Benitez didn't live up to the hype, Gomez Pintor far exceeded it. The third round was named Ring Magazine's Round of the Year, and Pintor's pinpoint punches raised massive swelling around both of Gomez's eyes. Despite the facial injuries, Gomez continued to push a hard pace, so hard that at the end of several rounds, Gomez's cornerman would jump into the ring and carry him back to his corner. Entering the 14th round, the fight was still up for grabs, but in the round's final minute, it was Pintor who finally cracked. A left to the body and a right to the jaw scored the first knockdown, and Pintor, he somehow got to his feet, but Gomez's final combination ended the fight moments later. With this fight, Gomez made it 17 for 17. 17 defenses, 17 knockouts. That's a record that's likely never going to be broken. And when it comes to 122-pound title fights, this is the gold standard. Now, there have been some challengers to the throne, most notably the first fight between Eric Morales and Marco Antonio Barrera, as well as the 3 fights between Israel Vasquez and Rafael Marquez. But to me, Gomez Pintor is still number 1.
Rather than a pure sixer, it was nearly a pure 15-rounder. Almost made it. Wow, that's great stuff there. I know you've often spoken about that fight. To me, great stuff there. And again, congratulations to all the 2025 inductees. Take just a moment here and talk about my relationship with Manny Pacquiao that began. Well, my show In This Corner first aired April the 1st, 2004. But even before that, I think Manny Pacquiao was in the top 3 or 4 shows we originally shot, probably in 2003. And, you know, he was so gracious with me. He used to train at the IBA, Tony Rila's IBA gym, and I had the keys to that later on, and I used to go in there and work out. That's where I would shoot all my in-ring segments. And I remember sitting down, with Manny, and we took a liking to each other because we're both the same damn height, ladies and gentlemen. Manny Pacquiao and Smitty, we are the proper height. For those of you who are above our height, something is wrong with you. Manny and I are the right height. Anyway, we had a great relationship, and he allowed me, as you know, Lee, to be carte blanche to everything, to all of his training sessions, even when they would throw other people out. And I remember one time he was my fighter of the year, and I gave him this painting of Muhammad Ali that he hung in his home in L.A. I remember when they did a 24/7, like a year or so after I saw it, when they were doing the piece. And again, we just became very close. He's always treated me the same way. I think he is the embodiment. And we mentioned some others here tonight, even like a guy like Vasquez and Pintor and Gomez, but he's the embodiment of what is really special about boxing, because Manny is a guy that, for all intents and purposes, if it wasn't for boxing, we certainly wouldn't be talking about him here today. He wouldn't be in any kind of halls of fame. This was a kid who had no money. He would go in the streets and sell anything he could. You all probably know his story. And sell whatever he could with a big smile on his face, the same damn way he would come into the ring. And Manny lost a few, but I got to tell you something. If you put his career almost against anybody, what he did, how he did it, over the period of time that he did it, the weight divisions, and really one of the great careers of all time, and the fact that he would lose but be able to come back and bounce back. He even had early career losses. Nobody meant more to the sport of boxing. While Floyd was in and out of situations and Mike Tyson was gone and Julio Cesar was gone, this guy carried the damn sport. Man, he carried the sport. He did. And he did a great job. And you're seeing a bunch of pictures of him and I throughout the years. I don't know how many we're going to use here, but I'll tell you how we're going to end it. And I thought about this when I first sat down with Manny, and of course I had my little signature way of ending the show. How do you want to be remembered as a fighter, and more importantly as a man? I switched some of the words and all that. But if you really pay attention to what Manny said and responding to me on this, this moment really now, and especially June 5th through the 8th when he's with us in Canastota, will really be the culmination of a dream come true. Congratulations once again to all the Hall of Famers. We want to thank Randy Gordon for being with us. Great job, Lee. And let's end with Manny Pacquiao. So long, everybody.
You're a world figure now with your success in the ring. How are you going to handle that? What are you going to do to deal with that?
I just want to help the poor people in my country, like especially in Mindanao.
You're still a baby in the sport of boxing. Is it important for you to go down as one of the greats, to be along with the Salvador Sanchez's and people like that?
Yeah, I like that. I want to. My name is in the top. Even I'm stopping boxing. I wanna be a model to the boxers, to the other boxer.
All right. Well, later on, you're going to show me a thing or two, okay? But you can't hit me. Well, I tell you what, you're off to a fantastic start, and you provided us a lot of thrills already. I'm certain the future's going to be tremendous for the Pac-Man, Manny Pacquiao. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.